chosen by the alien mother to awaken her daughter's hidden desires. The summons of stars. The message had been cryptic, arriving through diplomatic channels with the seal of matriarch Vesra herself. Kale Theron adjusted his formal attire as his shuttle descended through Zephiria's violet atmosphere, the crystalline spires of the capital city reflecting prismatic light across the horizon. As an ambassador specializing in delicate negotiations, Kale had visited many worlds, but Zephiria's beauty still took his breath away. The palace floated above cascading waterfalls, suspended by ancient technology that hummed with subtle energy. Matriarch Vesra received him in her private chambers, dismissing all attendants with a gesture. She moved with the fluid grace characteristic of her people, her silver hair flowing like liquid mercury around her shoulders. Her eyes, deep amber with flecks of gold, studied him with an intensity that made him unconsciously straighten his posture. "Ambassador Theron," she began, her voice carrying melodic undertones that seemed to resonate in his chest. "I've studied your record extensively. Your ability to navigate complex cultural situations is impressive." "You honor me, matriarch," Kale replied, inclining his head respectfully. She circled him slowly, her flowing robes whispering against the polished floor. "What I'm about to propose requires absolute discretion. My daughter, Nyara, has lived her entire existence within these walls, prepared since birth for an arranged bonding with a noble from our sister world." Vesra paused at the window, gazing at the setting suns. "But she knows nothing of passion, of choice, of what her heart might truly desire. She is brilliant, accomplished in every art and science we value, yet." She turned to face him. "She is like a flower that has never felt rain." Kale's pulse quickened as understanding dawned. "Matriarch, surely you're not suggesting—" "I'm suggesting nothing improper," Vesra interrupted smoothly. "Merely that you spend time with her. Show her that there are different ways of existing, different kinds of connection. Let her discover what she might feel when not bound by protocol." The weight of the request settled on Kale's shoulders. "Why me?" Vesra's lips curved in an enigmatic smile. "Because you're an outsider who understands the value of tradition while knowing when to challenge it. Because you have a reputation for awakening minds to new possibilities." She stepped closer. "And because I sense in you a capacity for discretion and genuine care." The twin suns cast long shadows as Kale contemplated this unexpected mission, unaware that it would change not just Nyara's life, but his own. Behind veils of protocol. The morning light filtered through crystalline walls as Kale was escorted to the princess's study. Nyara stood with her back to him, examining star charts that floated holographically before her. Her long, dark hair was woven with threads of silver that caught the light, and her posture spoke of years of rigid training. "Princess Nyara," the attendant announced, "Ambassador Theron has arrived for your cultural exchange session." She turned slowly, and Kale found himself momentarily speechless. Her eyes were the color of twilight skies, holding an intelligence that seemed to see through his diplomatic facade. She wore traditional robes that flowed like water, yet her expression was guarded, almost cold. "Ambassador," she acknowledged with a precise nod. "My mother insists these sessions will broaden my perspective before my bonding ceremony. I fail to see the necessity." Kale stepped forward, offering a less formal smile than protocol demanded. "Perhaps necessity isn't always about what we expect, Princess. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from unexpected sources." Her eyebrow arched slightly. "Spoken like a true diplomat. Shall we dispense with empty platitudes?" Over the following days, their interactions were a careful dance of resistance and curiosity. Nyara challenged every observation he made about other worlds, questioned every custom he described. Yet Kale noticed how her eyes lingered when he spoke of places where people chose their own paths, where love wasn't predetermined by bloodlines and treaties. During a walk through the palace's suspended gardens, she suddenly stopped. "Why do you look at me that way?" "What way?" Kale asked, though he knew he'd been caught studying her. "As if you see someone else. Someone I'm not." He chose his words carefully. "I see someone who's asking questions, even when she pretends not to. Someone whose mind reaches beyond these walls, even if her body cannot." For the first time, her composure cracked. You know nothing about me. I know you've memorized star charts for systems you'll never visit. I know you pause when discussing your upcoming bonding, as if tasting words you'd rather not swallow. I know that when you think no one's watching, you touch the windows as if you could push through them. Nyara's breath caught, her fingers unconsciously moving to the transparent barrier beside them. Below, the city sparkled with life she'd only observed from above. My duty is clear, she whispered, but her voice carried doubt that hadn't been there before. Moonlit confessions. The festival of dual moons transformed the palace into a wonderland of shifting lights and shadows. While the court celebrated in the great hall, Kale found Nyara in the floating gardens, a restricted area where gravity itself seemed gentler, allowing for impossible arrangements of water and flora. She stood beneath an archway of luminescent vines, having shed her formal robes for a simpler dress that moved with her like breath. The twin moons painted her in silver and gold, and for a moment, Kale forgot every diplomatic protocol he'd ever learned. You shouldn't be here, she said without turning around. If we're discovered alone. Then tell me to leave, he challenged softly, moving closer. She finally faced him, and he saw tears threatening to spill from her eyes. I can't. That's the problem, isn't it? For the first time in my life, I can't make myself do what I should. The distance between them evaporated as she stepped forward, her hand reaching out tentatively. Tell me about Earth again. About choosing who to love. Kale took her hand, marveling at how perfectly it fit in his. It's messy, complicated. Hearts break. People make mistakes. But when two people choose each other, freely, completely, there's a magic in that choice that no arrangement could replicate. Show me, she whispered, her other hand coming to rest against his chest. Show me what it feels like to choose. He cupped her face gently, thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped. Nyara, if we cross this line. I know, she breathed, tilting her face up toward his. For once in my life, I want to know what it feels like to want something just because I want it, not because it was decided for me. Their lips met in a kiss that was tender and explosive simultaneously. Her arms wound around his neck as his hands tangled in her hair, silver threads cool against his fingers. The floating gardens seemed to pulse with bioluminescent light in response to their connection, as if the very plants could sense the awakening happening between them. When they finally parted, both breathing unsteadily, Nyara's eyes held a fire he'd never seen before. I understand now, she said, her voice filled with wonder and fear in equal measure. This is what my mother wanted me to discover. The question is, what do I do with this feeling? Kale pulled her close again, holding her as the moons crossed paths above them. That's the beautiful, terrifying thing about choice, Nyara. Only you can answer that question. The dance of desire. The days following the festival were charged with an electricity that seemed to affect the very air around them. Nyara had begun requesting private tutorials with Kale, ostensibly to study diplomatic protocols, but their lessons had become something else entirely. In her private chambers, away from the court's watchful eyes, she moved differently now, more fluid, more alive. The afternoon sun cast golden patterns through the crystalline walls as she stood before him, having just finished demonstrating a traditional Zephyrian dance. Your turn, she said, breathless and radiant. Show me how your people dance. Kale extended his hand, drawing her close. On Earth, we dance like this, he murmured, positioning one of her hands on his shoulder while holding the other. His free hand settled on her waist, and he felt her sharp intake of breath. They moved slowly, bodies pressed closer than any Zephyrian protocol would allow. Her head tilted back, exposing the elegant line of her throat, and Kale fought the urge to press his lips there. This is dangerous, she whispered, even as she molded herself more firmly against him. Do you want to stop? His voice was rough with barely controlled desire. Her answer was to pull his head down, claiming his mouth in a kiss that was nothing like their first tentative exploration. This was fire and need, her fingers tangling in his hair as he backed her against the wall. His hands skimmed her sides, learning the shape of her through the thin fabric of her dress. I dream about you, she confessed against his lips. Wake up reaching for you. Is this what madness feels like? No, he breathed, trailing kisses along her jaw. This is what being alive feels like. A soft chime interrupted them. Someone was approaching. They sprang apart, both working to compose themselves, but the heat in their eyes was impossible to hide. Lady Vessera entered, her knowing gaze taking in their flushed faces and disordered clothing. "Leave us," she commanded Kale, though her tone held no anger. After he left, Vessera approached her daughter. "You've awakened, my dear one." "Mother, The court has noticed. Your betrothed arrives in 3 days." Vessera touched her daughter's face gently. "Whatever you decide, know that I wanted you to have this, the knowledge of what passion feels like, what choice means. The memory of it will sustain you through whatever path you choose." Nyara's eyes filled with tears. "What if I can't go through with the bonding? What if I've changed too much?" "Then you will face that truth with the courage I've always known you possess," Vessera replied. "But the choice, my daughter, must be yours alone." Choice of hearts. The great hall had been transformed for the bonding ceremony. Lord Zevon had arrived from the sister world, tall, dignified, everything a proper match should be. Nyara stood in ceremonial robes that felt like chains, her reflection in the mirror showing a princess but feeling like a stranger. Kale had been ordered to attend as part of the diplomatic delegation. She could feel his presence even without looking, a magnetic pull that threatened to unravel her composure. The ceremony began with ancient words in the old language, but Nyara heard none of them. Her mind was filled with memories, Kale's laughter, his touch, the way he looked at her as if she were a miracle rather than a duty. "Princess Nyara," the officiant intoned, "do you accept this bond, to unite our worlds in harmony?" The hall fell silent. This was the moment, a single word would seal her fate. She looked up, finding Kale's eyes across the room. In them, she saw everything she'd discovered about herself, everything she could be. But she also saw his acceptance, his willingness to let her go if that was her choice. She began, then stopped. Her hands trembled as she reached up, removing the ceremonial headdress that marked her as a bride. "I cannot." Gasps echoed through the hall. Lord Zevon stepped back, his expression more relieved than insulted. Perhaps he too had dreams that didn't align with duty. Nyara turned to face the assembly, her voice growing stronger. "I mean no disrespect to Lord Zevon or our allied world. But I have learned that a union without genuine feeling is a hollow foundation for peace. We must find another way." She walked down from the platform, each step feeling like shedding weights she'd carried all her life. The crowd parted as she moved toward Kale, who stood frozen, hardly daring to believe. "Ambassador Theron," she said formally, though her eyes danced with newfound freedom. "I choose you. Not because it was arranged, not because it serves any political purpose, but simply because my heart refuses any other path." He caught her as she threw herself into his arms, lifting her off her feet as the hall erupted in chaos around them. "Are you certain?" he whispered against her ear. "You're giving up everything." "No," she laughed, the sound pure joy. "I'm finally gaining everything. A life of my own choosing, with someone who sees me not as Princess Nyara, but simply as myself." Matriarch Vessera's voice cut through the commotion, commanding silence. "My daughter has made her choice. It may not be the one tradition demands, but it is one made from truth. And perhaps," she looked at the assembled diplomats, "it's time our worlds learned that the strongest bonds are those forged by genuine connection rather than obligation." As Kale and Nyara kissed, sealing their choice before all, the twin moons aligned perfectly overhead, casting their combined light through the crystalline ceiling. It felt like the universe itself was blessing this moment of two hearts choosing love over duty, passion over protocol, and a shared future over predetermined fate. In her mother's eyes, Nyara saw approval and perhaps a hint of envy, for the courage to choose what an earlier generation could not. The path ahead would be uncertain, but it would be theirs to walk together, step by chosen step. The end.